The stars flickered and then vanished, replaced by the deafening hum of emergency sirens. Commander Liam Raynor gripped the controls of his shuttle, fighting to keep it steady as the ship buckled beneath him. A massive surge of gravitational pull had yanked him from hyperspace, sending his vessel spiraling toward the surface of a planet that hadn't been marked on any of his star charts. System failure imminent. Brace for impact, the shuttle's AI warned, its calm voice in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around him. Liam's heart hammered in his chest as he scanned the flashing indicators. The engines were fried, the navigation systems completely scrambled. All he could do was try to guide the craft toward a clearing in the endless desert landscape rushing up to meet him. The impact came with a thunderous crash. Metal screeched, and the entire shuttle groaned as it skidded across the planet's barren surface, finally coming to a grinding halt near a cluster of jagged rock formations. The force threw Liam hard against his seat restraints, knocking the breath from his lungs. For a moment, silence enveloped him. The only sound was the faint crackling of damaged electronics. The shuttle was dead. Liam sat still, his body aching and head spinning, but he was alive. AI, status report, he rasped, trying to get his bearings. There was no response. The dashboard was dark, lifeless. The ship had given its last breath in the crash. He unbuckled his harness with a groan, forcing his sore limbs into motion. The cockpit was a mess crack spiderwebbed across the viewports, and debris littered the floor. The emergency systems had kicked in, keeping the cabin pressurized, but how long that would last was anyone's guess. Liam activated his wrist communicator. Distress beacon activated, he muttered, hearing the faint ping as it sent out a signal. He didn't hold out much hope. He was deep in uncharted territory, and any nearby ships would be few and far between. The odds of rescue were slim. The burning heat of the planet pressed down on him as he forced the hatch open, stepping out into the harsh landscape of Vether Prime. The air was thin but breathable, and the sky overhead glowed with an unnatural red hue. Liam shielded his eyes from the glare, scanning the horizon. It was a wasteland. As far as he could see, the terrain was flat and barren, broken only by massive rock formations that twisted like jagged spires toward the sky. The planet had the feel of something ancient, forgotten. There was no sign of life, no plants, no water, no movement. Just the endless desert and the eerie silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Great, Liam muttered under his breath, surveying the wreckage. He grabbed his survival kit from the shuttle's remains and took stock of what little supplies he had, a few days' worth of rations, a plasma pistol with limited charge, and a portable scanner. The first step was finding shelter and water. He started toward the nearest rock formation, the dry ground crunching beneath his boots. As he walked, his mind raced through possible scenarios. A planet like this off the charts, seemingly uninhabited, shouldn't have the kind of gravity well that could yank a ship out of hyperspace. Something about Vether Prime wasn't right. He reached the base of the rock formation, finding a narrow crevice that offered some protection from the sun's harsh rays. Setting up his small camp, he activated his scanner, hoping to locate any sign of resources, water, minerals, anything that could help him survive. But the screen flickered with an unfamiliar distortion. He frowned and adjusted the settings, trying to clear the interference, but it persisted, the signal erratic and pulsing. The scanner wasn't malfunctioning. Something else was interfering with the readings. Before he could investigate further, Liam felt a sudden, sharp presence in the air, like an electrical charge running through his body. His skin prickled, and a deep, inexplicable sensation of being watched washed over him. He spun around, hand on his plasma pistol, eyes scanning the rocks for movement. Nothing. Just the dead, empty landscape. And then she appeared. Liam froze, his breath catching in his throat. The figure stepped into view from behind one of the rock spires, her movements impossibly fluid, as though she had been standing there all along, waiting for him. She was tall, her elongated limbs covered in sleek, silver armor that gleamed in the red sunlight. Her skin was a shimmering pale blue, iridescent and alien. Dark hair cascaded down her back in smooth waves, and her eyes were impossibly black, endless eyes locked onto his. She didn't speak, but Liam felt her voice inside his mind, a presence as overwhelming as it was foreign. You are the one I need. Her mental voice was soft yet commanding, carrying a weight of authority that sent a chill down Liam's spine. He backed up instinctively, his hand tightening around his pistol, though something told him it would be useless against her. What? Who are you? He managed, his voice tight. His mind raced to make sense of what was happening, but the sheer presence of her was enough to scramble his thoughts. The woman stepped closer, her movements graceful, predatory. Despite the surrealness of the situation, Liam couldn't deny the strange magnetism she exuded, a pull that both terrified and intrigued him. I am Lasara, the last of the Vedhari, she projected into his mind, her tone even and unyielding. You, human, are not here by chance. You have been chosen. Liam blinked, confused. Chosen for what? I'm not here on purpose. My ship crashed dash. Her eyes glimmered with a strange intensity, cutting off his protest. Your arrival was foreseen. I have waited long for one like you. Vether Prime is my domain, and you will serve the purpose for which you have been brought here. A cold dread settled in Liam's stomach as he took a step back. What purpose? What do you want from me? Lasara's lips curved into a faint smile, but there was no warmth in it, only a sense of inevitability. Her gaze never left his as she spoke once more, her telepathic voice echoing in his mind. You will give me offspring. The future of my race depends on it. The word struck him like a physical blow, and for a moment, Liam couldn't breathe. His mind reeled, trying to comprehend the sheer audacity and absurdity of what she was saying. No, he said, his voice hoarse. That's insane. But Lasara took another step closer, her expression serene yet unrelenting. It is not insanity, human. It is survival. And you will not refuse me. Before Liam could react, his vision blurred, and a heavy weight pressed down on his consciousness. He staggered, the world spinning as darkness closed in around him. The last thing he saw before everything went black was Lasara's eyes, watching him with a calm, unwavering certainty. Liam's world faded into oblivion, leaving only the stark realization that he was trapped on Vether Prime, at the mercy of a being who had far more control over his fate than he ever imagined. Liam awoke to a cold, damp sensation on his skin. His head throbbed as he blinked, trying to shake off the haze clouding his mind. Slowly, the world came into focus. He was no longer in the barren desert, no longer near the wreckage of his ship. Instead, he found himself in a strange, cavernous chamber. The walls around him pulsed faintly with a dim, blue light, like veins running through a living organism. He tried to move but realized his wrists were bound by strange, translucent bands that hummed with energy. His ankles, too, were immobilized by the same alien force. Panic surged through him, but when he struggled, the bonds only tightened, holding him in place. Liam's heart pounded as he scanned the room. It was vast and organic, more like the inside of some massive creature than any structure he had ever seen. The air was thick, humid, and charged with an electric energy that made his skin tingle. And then, he saw her. Lasara stood at the far end of the chamber, bathed in the faint glow of the room. Her tall, lithe figure moved with a fluid grace as she approached, her iridescent blue skin shimmering under the pale light. Her dark hair, cascading down her back, swayed as if caught in an invisible current. Her eyes dozed deep, black eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his breath catch in his throat. You are awake, her voice echoed in his mind, as calm and commanding as before. She stopped a few paces in front of him, her gaze unwavering. Liam clenched his fists, trying to calm the racing thoughts in his mind. What the hell is going on? His voice was hoarse, his throat dry. Why am I tied up? What do you want from me? Lasara's eyes glimmered with a cold intensity. You know what I want. I told you before, you have been chosen to ensure the survival of my species. Her words from earlier echoed in his mind, and the memory hit him like a hammer. Offspring. She had said she wanted him to give her offspring. The thought had seemed absurd at the time, a nightmarish scenario he hadn't fully processed in the chaos of the moment. No, Liam said, shaking his head. You're not just going to force me into this. I'm not some tool for you to use. I don't even know what you are, who you are, or how this is even possible. Lasara's expression remained unreadable as she tilted her head slightly, studying him with a detached curiosity. You are confused, but I will explain. She began to circle him slowly, her hands clasped behind her back. My people, the Vedhari, once thrived on this planet. We were an advanced race, far beyond your kind in both technology and biological prowess. But we were also proud. That pride led to war. Liam listened, his pulse still racing, but something in her tone had shifted. It was no longer just cold command, there was something deeper, a hint of sorrow. Our enemies unleashed a biological weapon that decimated my people. It did not kill us outright, but it destroyed our ability to reproduce. The Vedhari became sterile. Slowly, our civilization withered. Some of us, like myself, were placed in stasis, preserved in the hope that a solution would be found. But no solution ever came. She stopped in front of him, her black eyes locking onto his once more. I am the last of my kind. And I cannot allow the Vedhari to vanish from the universe. That is where you come in. Liam's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to absorb the enormity of what she was saying. You want me to help you repopulate your species? That's insane. He struggled against the restraints again, though it was useless. Lasara's eyes narrowed, but there was no anger in her voice, only a chilling certainty. It is not insane. It is survival. Your biology is compatible with mine, and I have the ability to ensure that our offspring will carry the necessary traits to rebuild the Vedhari. He stared at her in disbelief. You expect me to just go along with this? I don't even know you. I'm a human, not some breeding experiment for an extinct alien race. For the first time, Lasara's expression softened, though only slightly. I do not expect you to understand, not yet. But you must realize that your situation is dire. You are stranded on Vethar Prime. There is no way off this planet without my aid. Your only chance of survival is with me. Her words hung in the air, thick and heavy. Liam felt the weight of her logic pressing down on him. It wasn't just a threat, it was the truth. His ship was destroyed. There was no communication with the outside world. This barren, lifeless planet had already proven itself a trap, and without resources or shelter, he wouldn't last long. Lasara was offering him a way to survive, but at an unthinkable price. He clenched his jaw, his mind spinning with anger and disbelief. So that's it? Either I help you, or I die here. Lasara's gaze didn't waver. I am not without compassion, Liam Raynor. I do not wish for you to suffer. But the future of my race is at stake. I have waited centuries for someone compatible to arrive. Your presence here is no accident, it is fate. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Fate? Is that what you call this? But even as he said the words, he felt a strange pull. Something about her presence, her voice in his mind, was affecting him. It wasn't just fear or confusion. There was something deeper, more primal at work, a connection he couldn't explain. The rational part of his mind screamed at him to resist, to fight back, but another part, the part that had spent years isolated in the cold, vast emptiness of space, was drawn to her. Lasara stepped closer, her tall, graceful form towering over him. Her voice in his mind was softer now, almost gentle. I do not wish to force you. I wish for you to understand. You and I are the last hope for something greater than ourselves. Together, we can create a new future. Liam felt a lump forming in his throat. He had spent so much time alone, cut off from human connection, from purpose. And now, in this bizarre and twisted way, here was something offering him both, though the price was unimaginable. He swallowed hard, trying to regain control of his racing thoughts. I don't know if I can do this, he whispered, the words barely audible. Lysara reached out, her hand hovering just above his cheek, though she did not touch him. In time, you will see that you have no choice. The legacy of my people must endure. And with that, she stepped back, the restraints around his wrists and ankles loosening as if responding to her will. Liam collapsed forward, breathing hard, rubbing his sore wrists as he looked up at her. Lysara stood tall and resolute, her gaze still locked on him, but this time, there was something almost compassionate in her expression. Rest, she said, her voice and his mind softer now. We will speak again soon. Before he could respond, she turned and walked toward the far side of the chamber, disappearing through a smooth, archway-like opening that melted into the wall behind her. Liam was left alone, his mind reeling with the impossible reality he now faced. He lay back, staring at the strange, pulsating ceiling, his thoughts a chaotic storm. Lysara's demand weighed heavily on him. The survival of an entire species rested on his shoulders, yet the cost was more than he could fathom. As exhaustion overtook him, his last thought was a desperate, unspoken question. Would he ever escape this alien queen's impossible demand, or had fate already sealed his future on Vethar Prime? The answer, it seemed, was far beyond his control. Days on Vethar Prime blurred into an unmeasurable stretch of time. Liam Raynor, once a proud commander of the galactic fleet, was now a stranded survivor, alone on an uncharted, hostile planet. His routine was simple, searching for answers, trying to understand the alien technology around him, and, most importantly, grappling with the reality of Lysara's demand. The chamber he found himself in was far more than a cavern. It was a sophisticated, living structure, pulsing with energy that seemed to resonate with the planet itself. The walls were lined with bioluminescent vines that responded to Lysara's presence, dimming or brightening at her will. Liam couldn't help but feel that he was trapped inside a living organism, one that was tied intimately to Lysara. During the first few days, he barely saw her. She left him alone, allowing him to explore the extent of his surroundings. He discovered that the alien technology embedded in the structure was far more advanced than anything he had seen in the human colonies. Everything from the walls to the floor seemed to be crafted from organic material that responded to his touch, yet it functioned like machines, serving Lysara's will with precise efficiency. Despite the eerie nature of his new environment, Lysara's sanctuary was not without its comforts. The air was always the perfect temperature, and the strange glow from the walls gave off warmth, making the cave feel less like a prison and more like a carefully constructed environment. Food appeared at regular intervals, nutrient-rich pods that sustained him, though their taste was bland and unfamiliar. Yet, even with these comforts, Liam couldn't shake the feeling of being watched by the planet itself, as though everything was connected to Lysara's will. One morning, as he sat in what had become his routine spot near a bioluminescent cluster, tinkering with the remnants of his ship's communication device, Lysara appeared. She didn't speak immediately, her silent entrance causing the soft glow of the chamber to pulse gently. "You have been quiet," her voice echoed in his mind, soft but probing. Liam glanced up, setting down the broken device. His throat felt tight. "What did you expect?" he said, his voice low. "You drop a bomb on me, tell me I'm supposed to help you repopulate your species, and then leave me alone with no explanation. What do you expect me to say?" She didn't react to his frustration, only studied him with those dark, endless eyes. "You are processing your situation. I allowed you space to accept it. But time moves quickly here, Liam. The planet's cycle is different from your own world. You must come to terms with the inevitable." Liam stood, his fists clenched at his sides. "You say inevitable like I have no choice in this. You keep talking about survival and legacy, but what about me? What about my survival? My legacy?" His words echoed in the chamber, but Lysara's calm demeanor never faltered. You and I are bound now, whether you wish it or not. She took a step closer, her presence overwhelming as the atmosphere seemed to tighten around them. Vether Prime is my domain. I am its last living guardian. Without me, the planet will wither, and without the planet's life force, I will die. If I die, you will die. We are entwined in this fate, Liam Raynor. Her words chilled him, not because they sounded like a threat, but because he knew she spoke the truth. His days of searching for a way off the planet had yielded nothing. The wreck of his ship was beyond repair, and any attempt to send out a distress signal had been futile. He had no escape. Taking a deep breath, Liam spoke more calmly, but his voice still held the weight of frustration. So what? You're saying I have to help you just to survive? Lasara's eyes softened slightly, though there was still a firm resolve behind them. It is not just about survival. This world is barren now, but it once flourished. My people were great, and we left behind a legacy of knowledge and power. You are the key to reigniting that legacy. Together, we can rebuild. Liam shook his head, pacing away from her. Why me? Why now? Surely in all the centuries you've waited, someone else, some other species could have been your savior. I'm not special. Lasara remained silent for a moment, considering his words before responding. You are special, Liam. Your physiology is compatible with mine. Of the countless beings who have passed through this system, none have possessed what you do. Your genetic makeup can sustain the continuation of the Vedhari line. This is no accident, it is destiny. Destiny? Liam scoffed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. You sound like one of those ancient mystics, talking about fate and destiny as if everything's already decided. But I don't believe in that. You do not need to believe, Lasara responded, stepping closer until she was mere inches from him. But it is true. Our fates have aligned, and now we must move forward. Liam turned away, the weight of her words settling over him like a suffocating blanket. He hated the idea that his fate was no longer his to control. Every fiber of his being screamed to fight back, to resist, but the truth of his situation was inescapable. He was trapped here, bound to an alien queen whose demands were becoming clearer with each passing day. There was a moment of silence between them, the air thick with unspoken tension. Then, unexpectedly, Lasara's voice came again, quieter this time, softer. I do not seek to be cruel, Liam. I have been alone for centuries, waiting for this moment. But I understand that you are different. You feel fear, confusion. Perhaps even anger. Her admission surprised him. She had always spoken with such cold certainty, but now there was a vulnerability in her tone that made him pause. I do not wish to force you. But understand this, we are running out of time. Vether Prime is dying. The energy that sustains me, that sustains this planet, is fading. Without new life, it will collapse into ruin, and with it, both of us. Liam turned to face her again, meeting her intense gaze. And if I refuse? What then? Lasara's expression remained unreadable, though her voice held a somber note. If you refuse, we both die. Slowly, painfully, as the planet's life force drains away. I do not wish that fate for either of us. But I will not survive without you. The gravity of her words hit him hard. He was being forced into an impossible choice, submit to her demands or face death in a slow, agonizing collapse. The weight of responsibility felt crushing, as though the fate of not just one world, but an entire species, rested on his shoulders. He sank to the floor, feeling the cold, pulsing surface beneath his hands. For the first time since he had arrived, the reality of his situation became clear in a way that left him feeling utterly powerless. Lasara watched him quietly, her presence still commanding but no longer threatening. I will give you time to consider, she said softly. But remember, time is not on our side. And with that, she turned and left him alone once more, disappearing into the shadows of the chamber as though she had never been there at all. Liam remained where he sat, staring blankly at the alien surroundings. For the first time since he had crash-landed, he felt the full weight of isolation pressing in on him. His mind raced, torn between anger, fear, and an odd sense of understanding. Lasara's demands were harsh, but they weren't without reason. She, too, was trapped by her own biology, by the fate of her people. In a strange way, she was as much a prisoner of this planet as he was. For the first time, he allowed himself to truly think about what Lasara had said. The Vethari, a once great civilization, now reduced to one lone queen. He had never considered that an entire species could hinge on a single moment, a single decision, but here he was, the linchpin of a dying world. How did it come to this? He whispered to himself. There were no easy answers. And as much as he hated the idea of being used, of being trapped in this alien queen's twisted plan, there was one undeniable fact he couldn't escape. Lasara was right. Without him, she would die. Without her, he would die. And together, they might just have a chance, however slim it seemed, to forge a future out of the ruins of an ancient world. As the soft hum of the chamber echoed around him, Liam knew that his time to decide was running out. Liam awoke to the low, rhythmic hum of the chamber around him. The organic walls pulsed softly, almost in tune with his own heartbeat. He had lost track of time. Days, weeks, maybe even months had passed since he crash-landed on Vethar Prime. His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts, fear, anger, duty, and, to his surprise, something close to acceptance. The weight of his situation had settled in like a heavy cloak he could no longer shrug off. Lasara had given him time, as promised, but the clock was ticking. Each passing moment brought them closer to the inevitable collapse of the planet's life force. He could feel it in the air now, an increasing fragility, a faint tremor beneath his feet, as if the very world itself was holding its breath, waiting for his decision. The doorway to his chamber rippled open, and Lasara entered, her presence as graceful and commanding as ever. She had come to him often over the past weeks, though their conversations had grown less tense, more measured. She no longer pressed him with demands, but rather spoke of her people, her history, and the world she had once known. Today, however, was different. There was a sense of finality in the air. "It is time, Liam," her voice echoed in his mind, soft but resolute. "The planet grows weaker with each cycle. We must act soon, or it will be too late." Liam sat up, the familiar knot of tension tightening in his chest. He had known this moment was coming, but now that it was here, the weight of it pressed down on him with suffocating force. He stood slowly, meeting her gaze. "And if I agree? What happens then? What exactly do you want from me?" Lasara's dark eyes, deep and unreadable, held his for a moment before she spoke. "You and I will combine our genetic material, but it will not be in the way you imagine. The process is not as physical as it is for humans. Our technology, intertwined with the planet's life force, will do the work. The offspring we create will be the first of a new generation of Vetharier blending of our species." Liam frowned, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "You're talking about some kind of advanced genetic engineering?" She nodded slightly. "Yes. Our people mastered biological manipulation long ago. Your involvement will ensure that our offspring inherit both the strength of the Vethari and the resilience of humanity." She paused, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something in her expression, doubt, or perhaps vulnerability. "You will not be harmed. I do not wish for you to suffer." Liam steadied her, feeling the tension in the room shift. He had been so focused on his own fear and anger that he hadn't fully considered what this meant for her. Lasara was alone, the last of her kind, and she was asking for something far more personal than survival. She was asking for trust, for a future that she couldn't create without him. He took a deep breath, the gravity of the situation settling over him. "And what happens to us, afterward? After we do this?" Lasara's gaze softened, though her voice remained steady. "You will be free, as much as is possible. The planet will sustain us both as long as its life force is renewed. But I cannot lie to you, Liam, our fates are intertwined now. This planet is my life, and if we succeed, you will always be connected to it as well. There will be no return to the life you once knew. Her words hit him harder than he expected. The finality of it. No rescue mission, no return to the stars, no going back to his old life. He would be bound to Vether Prime, bound to Lysara, forever. He had fought against this reality for so long, but now, standing before her, he realized that there was no escaping it. He had a choice: either reject this future and die with the planet, or accept it and become something new, something different. It was terrifying, but in that moment, Liam felt a strange calm wash over him. The fight was over. Now, there was only the path ahead. I don't want to die here, Lysara, he said quietly. But I also don't know if I can just give up everything I was. My past, my people. Lysara stepped closer, her expression surprisingly gentle. You are not giving up who you are, Liam. You are ensuring that who you are lives on, in a way you never expected. Your people, your legacy, will merge with mine. Together, we can create something greater than what either of us was alone. Her words resonated with him in a way that cut through his fear. She wasn't just asking him to sacrifice himself, she was offering him a chance to build something, to leave behind a legacy that would last for generations. It wasn't the future he had imagined, but it was a future nonetheless. Liam exhaled slowly, his decision finally clear. All right, he said, meeting her gaze. I'll do it. Lysara's expression remained calm, though there was a flicker of something in her eyes, relief, perhaps. She nodded once, then turned and gestured for him to follow. They walked through the strange, pulsating corridors of the living structure, deeper into the heart of Lysara's domain. The air grew cooler, more charged, as they descended into what felt like the core of the planet itself. The walls around them shimmered with a soft, bioluminescent glow, lighting their path. At last, they reached a vast chamber unlike anything Liam had seen before. The room was dominated by a large, circular structure in the center, a glowing pool of blue energy that pulsed with life. Strange, intricate machinery surrounded it, glowing with the same soft light that infused the rest of the sanctuary. This is the convergence, Lysara explained as they approached the pool. It is the heart of Vether Prime. The energy here sustains both the planet and me. It will also be the key to our future. Liam felt the immense power radiating from the pool, a deep hum that seemed to vibrate in his bones. He glanced at Lysara, his uncertainty returning. What do I do? Lysara turned to him, her expression unreadable but not unkind. You need only step into the convergence with me. The process will be painless. The energy of the planet will do the rest. Liam hesitated, looking at the swirling blue light. It seemed almost alive, and the thought of stepping into it filled him with a sense of dread. But he had come this far, there was no turning back now. Lysara extended her hand to him, a gesture of trust. For the first time, he reached out and took it. Together, they stepped into the pool. The moment his body touched the energy, Liam felt a surge of warmth and power flood through him. It wasn't painful, in fact, it was almost euphoric, as though the planet itself was wrapping him in its embrace. His mind expanded, and he could feel Lysara beside him, her presence intertwined with his own in a way that was beyond physical connection. In that instant, he understood what she had meant. They were no longer two separate beings, they were part of something larger, something that transcended both of them. The energy pulsed around them, growing brighter and brighter until the entire chamber was bathed in light. Liam felt his consciousness merging with Lysara's, their thoughts and emotions blending together in a harmonious symphony. He could feel her hope, her sorrow, her determination, and in return, she felt his fear, his doubt, and finally, his acceptance. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the light dimmed. Liam stood at the edge of the pool, panting, his body humming with the lingering energy of the convergence. He turned to Lysara, who stood beside him, her face serene. "It is done," she said softly. "Our future is secure." Liam looked down at his hands, feeling the connection to the planet thrumming through him. He wasn't the same as he had been. He was part of something new now, something greater. The weight of his decision still lingered, but for the first time, he felt at peace. The future was uncertain, but it was no longer something to be feared. It was something to be built together. Lysara looked at him with something close to warmth in her dark eyes. "Thank you, Liam. You have given us hope." He nodded, still processing everything. "What happens now?" Lysara smiled faintly. "Now, we wait. Our offspring will grow, and in time, Vether Prime will flourish once more. Together, we will guide the future." Liam gazed out over the shimmering pool, the weight of his new reality settling in. He had come to this world as a lost, stranded man, but now, he was something more, something different. He had a purpose. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. The future of Vether Prime, of the Vethari, and of Liam Raynor was now entwined. They would rise or fall together, bound by fate, and by the life they had set into motion.